welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a story that, honestly, it sounds like it's straight out of a political thriller, but this is all real. We're going to explore how a head of state was captured in a covert raid, the crazy high-stakes battle for control that came next, and what it all means for the rest of us. Think about this. In a single day, the world watched Nicolás Maduro go from being the president of a nation to a prisoner of the United States. And this single act didn't just capture one man. It set off a massive geopolitical firestorm, leaving an entire nation in chaos and forcing the world to choose sides.
All right, so let's get right into the details of the raid itself. It all started in the dead of night, January 3rd in Caracas. U.S. Special Forces carried out this incredibly high-risk operation, capturing President Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, from a military base.
Now, this was no simple arrest. We're talking a highly coordinated, multi-step military operation. First up, a massive cyber attack triggered a national blackout, plunging the country into darkness. Then, stealth aircraft swooped in, jamming Venezuela's radar systems. It was only after the country was dark and blind that Delta Force commandos actually hit the ground.
Okay, and this is where the story just splits right in two. Almost immediately, two totally different narratives, two completely different versions of reality emerged. You've got the U.S. justification versus Maduro's defiant defense.
So, the official story from the U.S. frames this purely as a law enforcement action. They charge Maduro with some really serious stuff. Narco-terrorism, which is basically using drug money to fund terror, and drug trafficking. And to really drive the point home, the White House even released a perp walk video, to portray him not as a president, but as just another common criminal.
And the U.S. didn't just stop with the criminal charges. President Trump went even further, making it crystal clear that this was also about regime change. He announced a temporary U.S. administration to oversee what he called a transition of power.
But then you get Maduro's side. In his first court appearance in New York, handcuffed, he forcefully rejected everything. He pled not guilty, insisted he was still the legitimate president of Venezuela, and flat out said he'd been kidnapped. His lawyers argued the whole thing was politically motivated and a flagrant violation of international law.
So, here's the crucial question. Beyond the official charges of drug trafficking, many analysts and world leaders are pointing to another major factor at play here: Venezuela's massive, and I mean absolutely massive, natural resources.
So while the official charges are all about drugs, many observers, and look, Maduro himself has been screaming this for years, they argue the real prize here isn't cocaine, it's crude oil. And when you actually look at the numbers, that argument becomes pretty tough to ignore. And this chart just says it all. Forget what you think you know about oil producers. Venezuela has the single largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet. More than Saudi Arabia. More than anyone.
You want to put a number on that? We're talking an estimated 303 billion barrels of oil. That's about 18% of the world's total known reserves, all sitting right there under Venezuelan soil.
But here's the real kicker. Not all oil is the same. Most of Venezuela's is the stuff called heavy crude. And guess what? The massive refineries all along the U.S. Gulf Coast are specifically designed to process that exact type of oil, a resource they'd been cut off from for years because of sanctions.
So what happens inside a country when its leader is suddenly just gone? Well, a massive power vacuum opens up, creating total chaos and kicking off a new, high-stakes political showdown.
Two powerful women are now at the absolute center of this struggle. On one side, you have Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's loyalist vice president, who was quickly named interim president by his government. And on the other, there's Maria Corina Machado, a Nobel Peace Prize winner and longtime opposition leader, who says she's the one who rightfully won the last election and is the legitimate choice to lead.
These events unfolded with just breathtaking speed, leaving the Venezuelan people totally in a state of shock. State media suddenly started playing cartoons and music, censoring the news. A lot of people, just unsure of who was even in charge, only went outside for essentials, forming these long lines just filled with uncertainty about what was coming next.
And look, this was not just a regional event. The shockwaves from this operation went global, like instantly. It divided world powers and put all of Venezuela's neighbors on high alert.
The international reaction was swift, and it was split right down the middle. You had key U.S. rivals like Russia and China immediately condemn the attack. The United Nations even called it a violation of international law. But for the countries right next door, the fear was way more immediate. Colombia was worried about a massive refugee crisis, while Mexico was alarmed at the precedent of U.S. military interventions so close to home.
All of this leaves us with a really critical question for the 21st century. When does one nation's definition of justice give it the right to create chaos in another? The answer to that question is going to define the new rules of global power.